Namaste and welcome to Live, Love, Engage. And I am super excited today to welcome my guest, who is also a dear friend who I've known for 6 years now. Yeah, I was double checking the dates just to make sure that I had the math right. And it said, yeah, we met about 6 years ago. And she is an amazing person. I'm going to tell you all about her in just a second. But first, I want to welcome Brenda Bryan to Live, Love, Engage.
It's so good to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah,
It's
and
exciting to know that we've known each other for 6 years and what journey we've both been on. It's been, to be able to support each other and anchor each other and remind each other. I mean, this is kind of like the journey of that makes
mm,
everything we do worthwhile, right?
absolutely. And yeah, it has been an incredible journey thinking back to where I was 6 years ago.
Same.
It's all good. It's been ups and downs and wonderfulness. So I want to read this bio because I love your bio. I love how she starts off and she says that Brenda is a kick ass inspirational speaker, not just an ordinary speaker. No, she's a kick ass inspirational speaker, the diviner of human potential. And as a transformational coach and mastermind facilitator, she supports women to unmask and nurture their genius, empowering them to live in the strength of their passion. And she demonstrates authenticity, a warm hearted humor with a deep wealth of knowledge of how important communication is to feminine power. And in fact, we actually had you on the podcast a couple of years ago, the first year I started, and you kind of talking about feminine power then. But I wanted to have you on because this time around, because you actually have become an author, and she has a book called Inward and Beyond: Transformation is a Conscious Choice. And it is a phenomenal book. I highly recommend it. And that's what we're really going to talk about today because I was just blown away by the book, which is a book of poems. But I want to let you tell the story of what prompted you to write this book.
Oh, divine guidance prompted me in it, and I needed a way to engage in a creative healing process that would allow me to really speak feelings that I was having trouble speaking in coaching sessions or with my therapist or whatever. Just like it was just getting all mixed up and backwards, and somehow I wasn't satisfied. So I just really said, I need a way to express these things that's more in alignment with my language, my sensibility of creativity. And so that's when, basically poems started to download.
Mm.
And because of technology, I'm dyslexic. So for me, writing and spelling and, which is why I'm a really good speaker because I bypass all of that to get to where the words matter to me, right? But in the process of wanting to engage in being a more effective writer and to learn the art of writing, um, I'd been working on it, but these poems just kind of kept coming. And I would just take the one line or I'd take the whole poem, whatever came through, and I would just, put it on my phone, you know. Sometimes it was 3 o'clock in the morning, sometimes it was in the middle of doing dishes, sometimes
Mm.
it was I was out on a walk. It didn't matter if there was a spark of like, oh, that's a great line, or oh, I never thought about it that way. I would write it down, and then the next thing you know, I'm writing. I've probably got about 100 poems written and different essays written. And this book, Inward and Beyond: Transformation is a Conscious Choice, is a selection of poems that tell a story about the journey of falling in lust and falling out of lust, and then the work that goes along with falling out, and then the work that goes along with choosing to use the journey as a healing process.
Mm.
And that was really, I'm never without that journey because I think that is the work that I first of all I do. And I support others in being that. So this book is very vulnerable and very raw for me, and I never thought I'd expose myself quite this publicly. But everything was being said was go ahead and make this the next step, put the book out, and I didn't know how that was going to happen. And of course, as all things divine happen, it's a really good friend of mine is a publisher. I
Mm.
mean, I know she was publishing her own books, but I didn't know she was going to help me over the bridge and to a different land, and she did, and it was an amazing journey to work with her and to see this in print because I wouldn't nowhere in the journey was I working to be a published author.
Mm.
I was just following guidance, and guidance said to do this, and I did.
Well, I'm glad that you followed the guidance because even I wrote a review for the book on Amazon, and just reading the other reviews, it was I read them after. It was like I wanted sometimes when I'm reviewing books, I'll like read what other people say, and I was like, no, I'm just going to go with my gut. And
Mm.
then I read the other reviews. I'm like, yeah, we all kind of said the same thing. It was just profound and raw, and just and the courage and beauty that you really put down into words to describe uh, the joy and pain of this relationship that you were in, and ultimately the relationship with yourself, which I think is um, the most important relationship we have, because it's the first one we have, really. And
Right.
even though I know they say with your mother, but really it's you're with you your whole life, and you've got to be able to be um, connected with yourself. And so it's a hopeful book, I'll say that. But I want to ask you one thing, and it's interesting because you talked about the fact that you're dyslexic. So um I noticed something, and so this may have been unintentional, but I love how it turned out. So
Mm.
in the poem that you wrote, it's called Let Me, and it starts out, let me investigate your soul, let me peek at the heart of my lover and see how to love you more. And when I read that, see, I'm like, my brain, I'm like, I'm always looking for grammar and spelling. And it's just, I don't know, that's just how my quirky brain works out. So you spelled peak, P-E-A-K, like the top of a mountain, rather than P-E-E-K, which means to look quickly. And so I'm wondering, hmm, you know, this works either way, frankly. And I was wondering if you had, spelled it P-E-A-K in on purpose or not, or if it was just a divine sort of cool way to let people make their own interpretation.
Oh, it's in its best form. It is actually divine, and in its common thing, it's a spelling mistake. But there's the fun of all of it, right? Is
Yeah.
that when a word doesn't get picked up by spell check or by your editors, and it proceeds to go forward, and it leaves you with that kind of like questioning, is like, what peak are we talking about? And the peak is to the mountaintop. Like I do have in the back of my mind that I want to write a book called How I Got to the Mountaintop, right?
Mm.
um, because it is this journey of taking slogging steps all the way up until finally you get to this amazing place of recognizing what the journey really was about.
Mm.
And I think that that peak at another human being's heart is a way that we get to express our own heart more infinitely. And that was what I loved about having my heart opened
Mm.
by this woman and having it broken at the same time, because it was also so profoundly a prayer that I had asked for. And you don't know how a prayer is going to get answered. And so the kind of like in the journey of this, I would often find myself giggling at how spirit answers me, and what journey then I go on with the fact that I put that prayer out. and
Mhm.
and oh, how much more specific should I have gotten? Like, how should I honed in on this prayer? Right? Because they often tell you, get very specific about what you want, and it's like, well, the magic of this woman's power and this woman's innate ability to show me something that I knew was there, but I had no idea how to see it or unravel it, or how to step into what I needed to do to shift it. And so that the fact that she wouldn't talk to me about any of it was profoundly personal responsibility taken hold, right? It's like, well, I can't kind of talk my way into it or out of it. I can only go through it. And so that is why the kind of the inward and beyond, right? Because that's where the healing was taking place. A lot of patterns that I didn't recognize or didn't know, I knew they were in play, but I didn't know how they were showing up. And so it was just a really big window of to view an aspect of myself that wanted to be held and nurtured and cared for, because I think all of us have that. All of us have aspects of ourselves that we're leaving in the shadow or leaving behind or hoping we never have to see it again. Only to discover that in the depth of where we want life to really be rich and change, we're going to have to see it again.
Yeah, I know. It's amazing how that works.
Well, I've developed a really good sense of humor about all of it, because I think my healing process is to laugh at myself the most, and to recognize that in the dark place it was pretty messy in there and dark, and I was, at the same time that was happening, that darkness was happening, on the flip side, my business was taken off.
Mm. Oh, wow.
It's like,
Interesting.
oh, this is fascinating. Right? I'm having the worst time over here and the best time over here, and isn't that what life really shows up as being? That but all of it's happening at the same time anyway. It's just how
Mhm.
we choose to use it in the moment, and how it leverages us to kind of, for me, it's always been about how can I be a better service? How can I be, more in alignment with the truth of what gifts I have, and you can't do it if you're hiding from fear, or if you're afraid of saying yes to love, or afraid of saying yes to any adventure, right? I mean, you have to pick and choose which ones you're willing to do, because many of my friends turned to me and said, would you say yes to that again? And I said, absolutely.
Mm.
What happened for me was absolutely necessary if I was going to break open to another part of self-love. It had
Yeah.
nothing to do with her, but it had a lot to do with me, and where I was hiding and where I was holding back. And even, it's today as we were hopping on, I was like in that inquiry, it's like, how do we show up to make connections and love each other, and be in a place of radical self-care while doing that, right?
Mm.
Because I really like the word radical self-care. It's not about a mani-pedi, or it's not about having a soak in a tub. All of that's good, but that deeper self-worth and self-care that comes from really knowing our core values, what's healthy for us, what our dream is, what our passion is. How do we stand in that?
Mm.
That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah. Um, what has been the biggest, I don't know, either maybe lesson that you've learned through this process?
Well, I think the biggest lesson is to be in the inquiry uh, more often, to
Mm.
stay curious more in the game as the game is unfolding. To what I found with what happened for me in this relationship is, and I didn't know this until months later when the space was free, she had left the building, kind of thing. Elvis has left the building. There was room in the context of that then to recognize how much my I was in PTSD, that I was actually
Mm.
in a state of absolute fear for a really long time, and that I'd gone really unconscious. And
Mm.
it's like, I'm somebody who likes to practice conscious engagement and staying, but what happened, I didn't even see it, because it was such a slow kind of drip. And the next thing you know, and I had had an incident one day where we had an exchange in the kitchen, and I had this visceral sensation of being three and being in front of my mother, who was bipolar. and who was in a kind of a similar state of anger and anxiety and fear for themselves, and then as a sensitive and as an empath, like my body's just absorbing all of it, right? And so I got this clear understanding in that moment, kind of like, wow, no wonder she's mad at me. I left the building and I didn't know,
Mm.
because that's the way that I've practice staying alive, to be honest with you. I leave the situation. I might be physically available, but I
Mhm.
am not available otherwise, right? And so that was a huge kind of like, shit, I didn't, excuse my language, but you know me, I do all these words. I had no idea. And no wonder she was so mad at me. But at the same time, all of that was being promoted by how she was showing up, and
Mm.
how aggressive she was, and how ungiving she was, and how controlling she was because of her own fear. And I think if you read the poem Raven, I think Raven really talks about, and that I was trying to be really kind of um, clear about where I was at in that without putting too much on where she was at. But
Mm.
it really talked about that broken wing, and when we've been violated, and when we have no control over our sovereignty, how we then build up these means to survive.
Mhm.
And that's all she was doing. She was
Yeah.
surviving, and what I
Right.
was doing was surviving my way, and they they
Right.
they, they were not a match.
Yeah. 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 It's sad when that happens, but it's also was useful because it did help you to become aware. And
Yeah.
so even though it was absolutely painful in the moment, you can now look back and see the beauty of it, or see the eh, reasons why you needed to go through that. And yeah, I can so relate. I would do the same thing. I mean, think I actually even, I don't know if in my book, I don't think I necessarily titled this way, but I know I think I use it, that I was like hiding in plain sight,
Yeah.
because because that's a survival way. It's like I wanted to be just, just kind of blend in and not make waves, because there was a lot of chaos going on. And you want to be able to protect yourself, but
Well, that's
unfortunately it
that's the
can
way we've
cause
been
problems
trained
later on.
to fit in, right? I mean, as a
Yeah.
child, it's like, be seen and not heard, right?
Right.
And so do not protest against the elephant in the room, right? So, do not cause waves, right? There's so many ways that we've been silenced in order to not bring emotions to the table, and not name the emotions that we're having, because God forbid we actually can articulate the emotion we're in, right? And so, for me, 35 years, almost 40 years of working on trying to understand my own emotional body, coming out of a traumatic childhood. And my mother was an awesome woman. She was a powerhouse in her own right. She worked all of her life to keep us clean and healthy, and loved us. And then there were things that were outside of the realm of her control that just frustrated the hell out of her. And the way that frustration came out was through this cycle,
Mm.
you know, and I didn't know what to call it. I was seeing a therapist for a long time, and she finally talked to me, based on everything you're telling me, your mother was bipolar. And it's like, well, let's me look that up. Like, what are you saying?
Mm.
Right. So I went and looked at it, and it's like, well, the possibility exists that this is true.
Mm.
And a lot of what was happening for my mom was, she was she had 22 surgeries from the time I was 5 to the time I was 16. Most of what she was going through was coming off of drugs,
Oh.
and coming out of pain, and having to go back to work, and yeah, a life of frustration. And so where do you express frustration, right? on your family.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, yeah, or who do you express that
Well,
frustration with?
nobody will actually let you do it but your family, by the way.
Yeah,
Other
yeah,
people will just say, yeah, no, I'm walking away from this, right?
I know.
But as a
Oh,
child, just that was, and a sensitive, and of course, kind of being the loving-hearted person I am, it's just painful for my mom.
yeah.
So this journey of us coming into our own, like it's a bigger journey, right? We all have
Mm,
stories, and what we do with those stories and how we tell those stories really often reveal our paradigms and reveal our beliefs, patterns, and habits in ways that we don't even know because they're our blind side,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so what I found valuable about getting this level of expression out was the kind of the ways that my mind likes to do metaphor, likes to create visions.
Hmm.
And so I was able through poems to create visions of things that made more sense to me than if I'd trying to do it straight out
Yeah.
through anything else.
Mm.
It just became, it's just a form of expression that it's like, wow, that's a whole new voice for me. I'm kind of liking it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because the depth of me, you know me 6 years, so you know that I'm not a kind of a lighthearted person necessarily. So
You have your moments though.
I know, but I'm a little not. but it's that piece
Yeah,
of like I like to go for deep and I like to go for depth,
yeah.
and I think the poems each have a depth to them that is surprising in some ways,
Mm-hmm.
because they kind of stir up a sense of what is she talking about, or oh, I never would have thought of saying it that way, or
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how I would express that. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm interested in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is stimulating, articulating other people's creative process to do their own healing in a creative way that lets them find their expression. And it might be dance, and it might be art, and it might be writing a book, but creativity is one of the most profound ways to engage in the healing process. And because of the transformational work I do, I often do drumming journeys, or I do mind maps, and I do all kinds of things, right? That I think, because it brings out a different kind of way in which we can use our expression, our self-expression. And that's what I think is the most important part of where we're at in the journey for women right now, is learning to use our voice and to raise our voice to be self-expressed, so that our values and what our viewpoints matter, and that we're standing for that.
Mm. Yeah.
So, but we can't do it hiding.
That's
Right?
true. It
Right,
doesn't
we
work,
can't do it
does it?
hiding, and that's kind of like where the Raise Your Voice Speakers Club really comes in, because quite often people are afraid of speaking because there's a part of them that they don't want anybody to see,
Yeah.
and it's fair enough that you don't tell all stories, but when we're hiding that part, we're hiding it from the people who actually want to connect with us as well. And
Mm.
when we deal with it, when we heal it, when we own it, when we stand for it, when we nurture it, and when we can protect it, we can stand in the full transparency of who we are without feeling endangered. And I think that is a big piece of, like, kind of the work that we do in the Speakers Club, is because finding that place where we can reveal ourselves and not feel endangered, or feel endangered and do it anyway, which is quite,
Hmm.
we have to go ahead and move. We have to move forward.
Yeah.
We have to kind of come to the table and start claiming our spot at the table.
Mm. So much. I on a personal note, I've just missed you so much, and especially I'm remembering now how much we really do have in common. Not all of it pleasant, but because I think we had some similar childhoods, and it's interesting. I was actually just it's been 6 years also since my sister passed, or almost 6 years,
Mhm.
and I was finally going through, like, getting rid of some of the stuff that is I don't need to hold on to, medical records and things. But I also, um, she was a poet as well and wrote a lot of poems. And so I'm still kind of putting those away. It's like I'm not quite ready, but it just also, you know, I feel it's one of our connections, and especially now, even stronger. I feel like I'm just, we're just sisters from another mother. So there we
That's
have it.
right.
That's
Yeah, we
it.
just kind of get
So,
down to it there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. um, what? Oh, yeah. I want to ask you this question because I like asking guests this sometimes.
Mm.
What impact would you like to have on planet Earth in your lifetime?
Oh, simple questions. I like the simple ones. Sure. The quickest statement is I want equality for all,
Mm,
right? For everything, every living thing on the planet, right? I don't want to see it as some have more, some have less, some are better, some are worse. I don't like any of that story, right? So I want us to kind of have a change of heart and a change of mind towards how we treat each other and how we show up to respect the human being that's in front of us, no matter what age, color, race, gender, whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, why we put all those qualifiers on everything is kind of getting in the way of the most basic thing, which is just simply to show up honoring each other for who we are, period.
mm,
Right? So now I want legislation to reflect that, right?
yeah.
Equal pay for work of equal value, kind of, children being taken care of in all the ways that they need to be, the animals being taken care of by not being subjected to unbelievable uh, horticultural practices that don't make any sense in this day and age, right?
Mm,
It's because that's how they did it 2,000 years ago. Doesn't mean we continue to do that today. I mean, there's just things that we need to reevaluate our way of doing it and come to the table with some new creative ways in which to apply ourselves to our full potential,
mm,
because we're not applying ourselves to a full potential that I can see.
yeah, I agree. So I like that. So I'm glad that you've said it, put it out there, and I'm sure there are people working to do that, and it
Tons,
starts with
tons.
declaring it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What what are you working on now? So what's your passion that you're really excited about working on now?
Um. Well, I'm actually excited about what the book does for me. It changes a way that I can show up in the world with a different type of voice, because
Mm,
I'm a transformational coach, right? So actually having a book that I declared my own work around and
mm,
show my own vulnerability and my own rawness, because people are afraid of doing their emotional work. They're afraid that they'll
mm,
never come out of the crying spell, or that they'll be seen as being, inefficient or broken, or it's like, well, we're all of those things all the time anyway, so trying to
yeah.
hide all of that by putting more glitter and glue on your body isn't going to make that any different. So I really want to kind of I'm excited about creating a way for to have people tell their stories and reframe their stories and use their stories as a superpower,
Mm,
right? Because I think that's kind of like what I get to do with everything in my life. It's I see nothing as a mistake. I don't, it's like, oh, okay, I didn't do that right, or it didn't happen the way I wanted it to. It's like, so what do I get to know about this? I get to
yeah.
ask the questions. So I think it's about standing in the value of the fact that we're all on the green growing edge, and that the consciousness that we need to come to our lives with, it demands that we look at where we're being held back by our beliefs, our patterns, and our habits,
Mm,
our paradigms, and then what to do with that. Right. So you have to have a dream, right? You have to have a passion, a dream, an intention. Something that cracks your heart wide open, because when you're working on it, everything is more fun. There's more vitality, there's more aliveness, there's more engagement, there's more connection, right? And so I'm interested in creating that as part of the passion I'm in, is to kind of be speaking on stages across the nation and doing workshops and doing retreats that really create a sacred space for women to tell their story and to own their story and to create a story that now is the strength and the superpower of who they really are, because they've actually took that story and use it as fuel to strengthen the, their soul's desire.
Mm, yeah. And it's interesting. Again, I love divine timing. Is I had been reading recently um, Unity magazine, and they had an article in there, and I don't remember the term for it, so you can tell me what it is, but it's this Japanese art of taking broken pieces and then of like pottery and then putting them back together.
Yeah, I
Um,
can't say the word. I had to. I read this article at the book launch. It's
hmm,
Kintsugi.
yeah,
Kintsugi.
kintsugi, maybe,
Kintsugi. Yeah,
I think.
yeah. I had to get my friend to say it out loud because again, not my specialty. And anybody who knows me knows that I like to take words and change them all up anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, that on page 83 is that golden flaws, embracing flaws and imperfection, really talks about that piece of needing sometimes to fall apart and then picking up
Mhm.
the pieces and putting it back together with gold so that the perfection of you is even more beautiful than it was before. And I
Yeah.
think we don't get a lot of support for that in our overall society, that we're supposed to hold it together no matter what, and we're supposed to keep crunching down and pushing through and forcing ourselves, and so we never get a time to really kind of sit with kind of what needs to fall away for me to really blossom into this next aspect of myself, right? Whether
Yeah.
a flower has an outer coating, and it's like, I think it's Anais Nin who has the quote, and a bulb will resist blooming until it can no longer resist. It has to let go, right? So
Mhm.
that is kind of like where I like to see where we're going as a human race, is that we no longer resist showing our beauty, but that we let ourselves really blossom and claim our place in the
Yeah.
beauty of making this world a better place.
Yeah. Absolutely. And also to claim the parts of us that do get broken and that we can then put back together and create something even more spectacular because it's unique, and now it's a new unique version of yourself, and so let's embrace that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and again, there are no mistakes, right? Whatever
Right.
lessons we're designed to be taught, however we need to, whatever ways that we're holding back on truly embracing what we need to learn, the more we resist the learning, the harder the lesson's going to be. By the way,
Yeah.
so
This is true.
so you can choose to make it harder, or you can choose to do the work while it's still it's still the pot isn't boiling over and all the stew isn't burned up on the stove, right?
Right,
Turn the heat
right.
down sooner, stir it a little bit, get to know what's going on in there, and kind of come up with a better solution for ownership
Hmm.
of what's being stirred up, which is really kind of what I think is the work of transformation, is to learn to know what's going on, to listen. Emotional intelligence is really about this, right? To listen to your body, to listen to the sensations, to listen to what you're thinking and how they generate feelings, and then take responsibility for what you're talking about. Like, what do you need to say about that? What do you need
Hmm.
to do about that? How do you need to own that, right? Because
Yeah.
we put a lot of power in other people's hands to fix it for us. And the good news is nobody's going to, and the bad news is nobody's going to. You only one doing the fixing is you, because you're the
Right.
only one that has been given this divine life and this divine purpose to stand for the gifts of who you are. And that's kind of really a viewpoint, right? Is to
Mhm.
set to recognize that every human being has been given a gift, and every human being has the responsibility of bringing that gift into the light for for it to be used in a way that is for the good of all. I think, I don't, I know we have shadow, and I know we have dark sides, and we have power plays, and we have all of that, but the only way we can kind of come to a different understanding of what that is to be in ownership of the human being we want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And to just own all of that, to own the light and the dark, as it's, it's that yin and yang, and that's who we all are. It's all part of us. And to be able to own that is what will help us to be more, to be able to shine our light more fully in the world, and which is what I think we're all called to do. And we now have some tools by way of Brenda's book to help. I think. I think.
uh, Well, one of the things I'm doing is kind of we start on this is I'm putting together an ebook, a workbook on with how, how to tell, how to draw out and write your stories, and
Oh,
how to
good.
rewrite your stories, and then how to look at what can you claim from that story that is going to
Mm.
be part of stretching into your superpower, and recognizing that, if you're still breathing, that means you survived. And if you want to get past survival, then and get to thriving, you're going to have to kind of take the next step,
Yeah, for sure.
whatever that is. And
Yeah.
it's different for everybody.
Well, we could talk forever and ever and ever, but
We could.
but we're gonna have to bring this to a close for now. But maybe we'll have you back on again sometime when you got maybe some new stuff to talk about.
Another book.
That's right, another book. So, in the meantime, for someone who is listening to this, who would like more information about you, about the speakers club that you run, where to get the book, what's the best way for people? Where can people find you?
My website is brendarbryan.com, and that has my programs on there. And it has, if you want to talk to me directly, you can book a session, and anything that I can do to support you in making a plan for you, where you want your life to go. I'm also, the website will have a page for buying the book. And so you can go there, and it'll also, I've yet to get this set up, so it won't be immediately, but soon. I have the URL for it. Is the ebook will be accessible through that same site. So when you
Mhm.
order the book, and if you want an ebook, all you need to do is give me your email address, and then I'll send you the ebook. Um, and that its URL is I wrote this down. I don't know where I wrote it though. Um,
Well, I'll have it in the show notes. You
oh
can give
yeah,
it to
no,
me later. Don't worry.
it's your story, your superpower
Ah,
dot live
oh,
is
okay.
the URL
Awesome.
for that. So I was keeping it as short and as precise as I could. Your story, your superpower dot live, and again, it's the URL is accessible. I got to get it on my website, but that'll be like maybe, a 15-page ebook where you'll get questions and exercises and reflection time and journaling, and a set of kind of creative prompts to kind of move you forward, and kind of looking at your vocabulary, and looking how your vocabulary creates your paradigm.
Mm,
So it's being written and designed as we speak, kind of thing. So
excellent. I look forward to that.
we're
Yeah.
making it happen. That's all I can tell you.
Absolutely. I'm so glad. Well, it's been a pleasure seeing you and talking with you. And I, as I said, I highly recommend the book. So I know, definitely take advantage of what Brenda was sharing here today and get that ebook when she gets it done. And which probably by the time this airs, it'll be done. So you'll be able to get it.
We're,
So
we're streaming along because
yeah.
we got the game plan in there. I want to really use it as a leverage to have material when I'm working with an audience and doing workshops. So it's I'm
Yeah.
motivated, which is
So-
important.
Sounds good. Sounds
Well,
good.
Gloria, it's been a lovely time to chat. Yeah, over the years we have connected and reconnected, and the journey of growth is between us is phenomenal to watch. And thank you for a lovely conversation and the opportunity to just simply be in a little bit of pride for the fact that I did this body of work that I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting, but I'm enjoying kind of its ripple into the world.
Absolutely, you should, and you deserve to feel proud. It's very good work, and I'm glad to be a witness to it. So I appreciate that. And as I mentioned, I'll have all of Brenda's information will be in the show notes. So in case you're somewhere where you can't write that down, just go to liveloveengagepodcast.com when you have some time later, and then you'll be able to find Brenda's episode and be able to get all that information. And if you enjoyed this episode, I hope you will share it with a friend and encourage them to subscribe to the podcast. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to go out today and every day and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically.